everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you all to this special event hosted by Shivi Forensic. I'm R.K. Raksha, a proud member of Shivi Forensic. Today, we are privileged to have Mr. Praveen Priydarshi, an aspiring forensic expert, to enlighten us on this intriguing topic, understanding the insightful of psychological autopsy. Mr. Praveen Priydarshi is currently pursuing BSc Forensic Science second year at Uttar Pradesh State Institute of Forensic. Participants, you're encouraged to actively throughout your session and address your queries via chat box. Now let's begin the session and make the most of the learning opportunity. You can start the session.
Hello everyone, am I audible to you all?
Yes, sir.
I hope you guys are doing well. So let's start with the session. I am presenting my presentation. Is the presentation visible to you all? Is the presentation visible to you all guys?
Yes, sir.
So let's start with the topic. The topic for discussion of today is understanding expert testimony, science in courtroom. So before understanding what is expert testimony, we must firstly understand the term expert. So the term expert is nowhere defined in any Indian law, but Section 39 of Bharatiya Saksh Adhiniyam 2023, which was formerly known as Indian Evidence Act 1872, describes who can be an expert. So the basic provision says that when the court has to form an opinion upon a point of foreign law, science, art, or any other field, or as to identity of handwriting or finger impression, then opinions are taken of people who are expert in their respective fields. So these people are generally termed as expert. So the basic interpretation of the said provision is that an expert is a person who is summoned to the court when the court require their opinion on matters that are beyond general understanding of judges and judicial experts. So the section concludes to that an expert is a person who is of any specialized field like science, art, or finance, who are summoned to help the court form their opinions. And all the statements made by these experts before the court are considered as expert testimony. And these experts are also termed as expert witnesses. So it must be clear to you all. So moving on, we have the difference between a lay witness and an expert witness. So who is a lay witness? A lay witness is someone who has observed the event or the fact with their eyes or have experienced the fact. What is their testimony type? The testimony type of a lay witness is that their testimony is based on their experiences and observations. Not only tell the things that they have seen. Now moving to the next point, we have the qualification of lay witness. So it is not necessary for any lay witness to be qualified. An example of lay witness can be any eyewitness to an accident, a patient describing their symptoms to a doctor. On the other hand, we have expert witnesses. So expert witness is a person who gives their opinion based on scientific research or technical analysis that has been done by him. The qualification of an expert witness is that they must have specialized knowledge, training, and experience in their respective fields. Expert witnesses help the court to understand all the issues that are beyond the general understanding of judges and legal experts. The example of an expert witness can be a doctor explaining medical negligence to or a forensic analyst in any kind of case, criminal or civil case. So moving on, I have generally seen a confusion between the two terms, expert witness and forensic expert. So I would clear it for you all. A forensic expert is someone who has specialized knowledge in forensic science and law, whereas an expert witness is a broader term that refers to any individual with specialized knowledge who can testify in court and give opinion on subject matter. So it basically says that forensic expert is a subset of expert witness. So expert witness is a vast range, meaning a forensic expert can be often considered as an expert witness when they are called to testify in court about their findings in a case. But not all expert witnesses are forensic experts. The key distinction is the specific field of expertise involved. So let us take an example. We can say that a forensic pathologist in a homicide case would analyze the body or cadaver for cause of death, and they can be considered as an expert witness when they are testifying in court about their findings. Am I clear to you all? Do you have any doubts? Anyone has any doubts?
No, sir.
So I'm continuing. So now moving on to the core functions of expert opinion in court. So expert opinions serve as valuable resource for courts, as expert provide specialized knowledge and insights into complex issues. It basically means that they simplify difficult concepts and present them in a way that is understandable to non-experts. In this case, they are basically judges and legal experts. The second point states interpret technical or scientific data, drawing conclusions and offering opinions. So it basically says that if there is any kind of data evidence or technicality related to the case, then an expert would analyze the data and that evidences and give their conclusion, reports, and results that are based on scientific methods that are proved and widely accepted. The third point says educate judges and juries on technical matters that are essential to understand the case. So let us suppose that there is an expert of DNA and he's present in the courtroom presenting DNA evidence. Then he would submit his report, but that report would contain terms like genomic sequence, 90% matching, and some other technical terms that are used in DNA reports. So that report can't be easily understood by a judge or someone else. So sometimes it's not just about analyzing the data, but also making the conclusion understandable to judges and experts. The fourth point says that they must be offer objective, unbiased opinion based on their expertise and evidence presented. So they are supposed to be unbiased in order to serve justice to all. And what do I mean when I say objective? They must be objective as their opinions must be based on any kind of research, but not based on their personal opinions. So moving on, we have the major categories of expert witnesses. As stated in section 39 of BSA, expert can be anyone with specialized knowledge. So that there's a vast category of expert, and some of them are forensic experts. So who are forensic expert? Forensic expert is someone who analyzes evidences and aids the legal investigation and aids law enforcement agencies to further investigate the case and present the reports in courts, and that's all. So who are medical experts? Medical experts often play a key role in personal injury and malpractice cases. They explain complex health condition, treatments, cause of injury.
Excuse me, 1 minute.
Yes.
Your PPT is not moving.
Ma'am,
Your PPT is not moving. Like
ma'am,
we can't see the slides moving.
wait a minute, wait a minute. Is it visible now?
Yeah, but only that same slide is there. Can you present it from first? Only fourth slide is visible.
Fourth slide. Wait a minute. Is it visible now?
Yeah, now it is visible. You can continue your session.
I was talking about medical experts, so I will explain it again. So, medical witnesses play a key role in personal injury and malpractices cases where they explain about health condition, treatment, cause of injury, time of death, cause of death, and whether a doctor acted correctly or is following their SOP while doing anything. Then there are financial experts who are essential in fraud cases, business dispute, or divorce proceedings. They help analyze financial records and explain money related matters. While these experts provide valuable insights, their effectiveness totally depends on how clearly they communicate. Now, then, there are engineering experts. So, engineering experts are crucial in cases involving accidents, product failures, and construction disputes. They, if there's any kind of product or it has not functioning properly or it has caused any injury to someone, so then there are engineering expert. Now we have most important and most interesting people, psychological experts. So psychological experts are basically psychologists that work in coalition with the law
In
enforcement agencies. Ma'am,
we can only see the first slide.
first slide.
Like it is stuck on the first slide.
You are visible. You are seeing the previous slide or
Only the first slide. First slide.
wait a minute? Is this a technical issue? Is it visible now?
Yeah.
So I was talking about psychological experts. So psychological experts are basically psychologists who work in who work with law enforcement agencies, and their job is basically to evaluate mental state of victims, suspects, and criminals in order to know more about them. And psychologists generally prepare a profile of criminals, victims, and suspects based on various methods. So now we have the impact of expert testimony on case outcomes. So expert testimony can strongly influence court cases, but it's not always simple. Judges and juries and legal experts highly rely on experts to explain complex issues, but sometimes experts cause confusions. Some experts are trying to seem more convincing,
You're
not
presenting seventh slide.
um,
You're presenting the seventh slide, right?
the impact of expert testimony. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it is not visible. Yeah. Now it is okay. Yeah, I can continue.
Some experts seem more convincing, but not always. They are. एक second, फिर से slide change हो जाती है भाई. Ma'am, is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible.
So I was saying that when a lawyer presents their opinion on court using difficult word, and what was the point I was explaining? Expert opinion can persuade judges and juries to favor one side. So I was saying that expert opinions can persuade judges and juries to favor one side over the other. So expert opinion can create a high impact on judgment. They like that they can make judges favor one side over the other. So they are very important in cases. So anybody has any doubts till now? they can ask me. Anybody has any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, so is the slide visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
We have a case related to expert witnesses. It's a quite interesting case, State of Himachal Pradesh versus Jailal.
You are presenting 8 slides, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, press 8. It is in 7.
Ma'am?
It is in 7th slide.
I think
Yeah.
yes. Okay. Is it visible?
Yeah, yeah.
So we have the case State of Himachal Pradesh versus Jailal. So as you all must know, Himachal Pradesh is famous for its apple. And during the year 1983, a disease in apples called scab, it rendered all the apples and it made them unfit for human consumption. So taking in account the disease, the state government of Himachal Pradesh decided to take some measures in order to prevent losses to apple growers. And they also wanted that no people should get any injury from these apples, and so the government took a policy decision to purchase the fruits and destroy them. And this policy stated by government said that the destruction of these diseased apples would be taking place at different centers throughout the state of Himachal, and there would be a specific team of people that would be headed by officials and non-officials. The team was headed by a gazetted officer of state government, Pradhan and Up-Pradhan of the local panchayat. As a result of this policy, there were totally 195 centers where these apples were destroyed, and approximately about 3,000 ton of apple was collected from apple growers. And as a compensation to apple growers, a price of 50 paise per kg was set. After this, there were several complaints about corruption by growers and officials. That was, they were showing inflated quantities of apple and they were taking more and more compensation by government. So the case went to, so that there were appeals in the trial court, and trial court appointed district horticulture officer C. Pamar as an expert. So PC Power visited the apple orchards and he prepared an estimate of all the quantities produced by each tree and estimated a yield of particular orchard on the basis. On this basis, the trial court provided judgment that the defendants Jalal and others were guilty, but then they appealed in High Court of Shimla, and the High Court upheld all the sections and said that expert witness is one who has made the subject upon which he speaks a matter of particular study or practice, and also must have the special knowledge of the subject. Shri PC Power's qualifications were he was passed BSc Agriculture Honors from DU and MSc Horticulture from Punjab University, and he was promoted to District Horticulture Officer in the year 1973. But Sri PC Pamar never had any experience working with apples and preparing the yields of apple produced in any kind of orchids, or he neither have any experience working with any kind of fruit dealing with these types of diseases like scab and others. So the assessment in these orchids was in question, as the assessment also took place 1 year later after the yield was produced. The yield was in year 1983 and the assessment made by CPC Power was in the year 1984. So there was a question that how can he predict the yield in the following year? So he accepted the suggestion that he had not received any training with respect to assessment of apple crop, but the but it has been a part of his job. The expert witness could not state the number of scab cases in which he had been called upon to make any kind of assessment. He stated that this case, the case of Jalal, was his first and last case in which he was commissioned for accessing productivity on or of any kind of fruits orchard. On this basis, the defendants Jalal and others were not held liable, so the case went to Supreme Court and they were proven not guilty. And Supreme Court stated that PC Pankaj did not meet all the criteria for being an expert to determine the yield of apple orchards, as it was as it was not his expertise, and also there were no direct evidences against Jalal and other defendants. So the judgment drawn and outlined who can be expert in this case. So Supreme Court in this case held and explained that who can be expert. An expert should be a person who has a specialized study of the subject. They must have acquired a special experience, or they must also have the training on that particular issue which was in question in the case, and they must be skilled and must also have adequate knowledge. And the point says they must also have a degree in order to prove their competence in court, that they are credible enough to produce any kind of report. So it concludes to that an expert is not a witness of fact, his evidence of an advisory character. Is the case clear to all of you? Is it clear to all of you? So I would have to explain the whole case. Okay. So basically,
Like slowly.
I can be bilingual also. तो इस केस में बेसिकली कुछ ही चीज़ें बताई गई हैं, जैसे कि ये केस हिमाचल का था, तो इसमें स्कैब नाम की एक डिसीज़ थी, जो कि मतलब सेब में डिसीज़ हो जाती थी, तो सेब खराब हो जाते थे, तो उसे इंसान खा नहीं सकता था क्योंकि उसमें काफ़ी तरह की बीमारियां हो जाती। तो स्कैब डिसीज़ को स्कैब डिसीज एप्पल को मार्केट से हटाने के लिए जो हिमाचल प्रदेश की गवर्नमेंट थी, उन्होंने कुछ मेजर्स लिए। मेजर्स में ये एक पॉलिसी बनाई गई, जिस पॉलिसी के तहत उन लोगों ने ये कहा कि हम लोग सारे सेब को खरीद लेंगे और अपने गवर्नमेंट सेंटर्स पर जाकर डिस्ट्रॉय कर देंगे। तो उन्होंने अप्रोक्सीमेटली 3,000 टन सेब खरीदे, 50 पैसे पर केजी का प्राइस, मतलब एज अ कॉम्पनसेशन एप्पल ग्रोअर्स को दे करके। और ये सब खरीदने के बाद उन्होंने स्टेट, मतलब पूरे स्टेट में 195 सेंटर्स के अक्रॉस उन्होंने सेबों को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया। और ये सब करने के बाद बहुत सारे केसेस ऐसे आए जिसमें पता चला कि बहुत सारे एप्पल ग्रोअर्स ने और ऑफिशियल्स ने एक एक छोटा सा करप्शन का काम किया है। जैसे उन्होंने क्वांटिटीज सेब की इन्फ्लेट करके दिखा दी। जैसे वो मान लीजिए, जैसे कोई 2 टन सेब लाया, तो उन्होंने 2 टन की जगह उस गवर्नमेंट सेंटर पर एंट्री करी 4 टन की, और गवर्नमेंट से ज्यादा पैसा ले लिया पर केजी के हिसाब से। तो उन्होंने एक तरह से फ्रॉड किया। तो इसी फ्रॉड की अपील पहले करी गई ट्रायल कोर्ट में। तो ट्रायल कोर्ट ने एक्सपर्ट पीसी पनवर की रिपोर्ट देखी कि एक एप्पल ऑर्चिड, मतलब जो एप्पल ऑर्चिड वो था जिसमें मतलब जो डिस्प्यूटेड था कि इस ऑर्चिड से इतनी यील्ड हुई है, तो उस ऑर्चिड की पीसी पंवर ने एक रिपोर्ट तैयार करी कि इस ऑर्चिड की मैक्सिमम प्रोडक्टिविटी इतनी हो सकती है, मतलब कि इतना एप्पल यहाँ से प्रोड्यूस हो सकता है एक हार्वेस्ट में। तो पीसी पावर की इस रिपोर्ट के बेसिस पर ट्रायल कोर्ट ने जजमेंट पास कर दिया और उन्हें गिल्टी बना दिया। तो उसके बाद डिफेंडेंट्स ने अपील करी हाई कोर्ट में, और हाई कोर्ट में अपील करने के बाद पीसी पावर की जो क्वालिफिकेशंस थी उन्हें चैलेंज किया, क्योंकि पीसी पावर ने 1986 में ऑस्ट्रेलिया में एक एप्पल एप्पल के ऊपर वर्कशॉप अटेंड करी थी 3 महीने की. इट कैन बी वर्कशॉप और कॉल ट्रेनिंग. तो उन्होंने 1986 में ट्रेनिंग करी थी, जबकि उन्होंने केस से डील 1984 में किया था. तो वो कभी भी उस एप्पल वाले केस में एक्सपर्ट विटनेस माने ही नहीं जा सकते. तो बेसिकली सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कुछ गाइडलाइंस ही बना दी थी अपने जजमेंट में कि कुछ क्राइटेरिया एक एक्सपर्ट को फुलफिल करने पड़ेंगे, तभी उसे एक्सपर्ट कंसीडर किया जाएगा. और ये गाइडलाइंस बस यही हैं कि स्पेशलाइज स्टडी हो सकती है सब्जेक्ट की. एक एक एक्सपर्ट विटनेस को अपने सब्जेक्ट में स्किल्ड होना चाहिए, उसके पास ट्रेनिंग होनी चाहिए, उनके पास डिग्री होनी चाहिए, और उनके पास सेम चीज पे काम करने का एक प्रीवियस एक्सपीरियंस होना चाहिए, जिससे उनकी क्रेडिबिलिटी डिफाइन होती है कि हाँ वो इस केस में काम कर सकते हैं. Am I clear to you?
Yeah. Suggestion is don't press on the presentation mode. That's why the slides are stucking.
Ma'am?
Like don't press on the presentation mode. That's why your slides are getting stuck.
Okay. Is it visible?
You can, yeah. Seven. Next, you can proceed.
Okay. So the next case is of Ramesh Chandra Agrawal versus Regency Hospital Limited and others. So in the case of Ramesh Chandra Agrawal versus Regency Hospital and others, the Supreme Court of India delivered a judgment on September 11, 2009. The appellant, Mr. Ramesh Chandra, was aging about 60 at that time when he appealed in the court. One day he experienced pain in his back and weakness in his lower limbs. So he consulted doctors in Regency Hospital and he was aligned for a CT scan checkup. So after the CT scan checkup, it was revealed that he had a compression in his spine that was caused due to a tuberculosis infection. So on this basis, Mr. Ramesh Chandra Agrawal went to court and said that there have been some kind of malpractices during making his report. So the role of expert in the case was providing technical clarification to the court, as the experts analyzed the complex medical condition, and they also said that there was severe adherence to standard practices in the hospital. They evaluated the medical conduct of the doctors in the Regency Hospital and they determined if the hospital and doctors were following accepted protocols and they didn't act negligently. They also provided judicial assistance to the courts. And this case reaffirmed the principle that expert evidence is essential in medical negligence cases. After this case, all the cases of medical negligence were required to have an expert testimony, as it aids the court in making an informed and fair judgment. The next case is of Nirbhaya gang rape case, as you all have heard about it. So the name of the case was Mukesh and another versus State of and City of Delhi and others. So in this case there was a defining role of experts, as expert analyzed all the evidence. Sorry, what you have said, I didn't understand. Is there any doubt? Is there any doubt? Okay, let's continue.
Participants, you can fill the attendance link, then you'll get your certificates.
So let's continue. We have Nirbhaya gang rape case. In this case, the experts were basically forensic experts who analyzed all the evidences and established all the reports and conclusions and presented the reports and conclusions in court, and they were also responsible for making a fair judgment, helping the court making a fair judgment. So moving on, we have best practices and future trends in expert testimony. Expert witnesses should be well qualified and experienced in their fields. So as you have seen in the previous case of Himachal Pradesh versus Jailal, it is the experience is also important as well. Experience is parallelly important as the qualification of an expert. The next point states that an expert should be objective, as I have discussed earlier. Objectivity is also important, as expert must not include their personal opinions into the conclusion, at it would create biasness toward any party, either it may be of victim or it may be of the suspect. So they must be transparent in their testimony, so they must do their job with full efforts. And we have the next point: expert must be aware of emerging scientific and technological advancement relevant to their field. This basically states that an expert following a particular procedure must be aware of all the technology and advancement. Like if there's any research in the field of DNA, so a DNA expert must be knowing about that research, and if and he must also be knowing if that research is going to get accreditation by all the authorities in that country or internationally. So they must be aware of all advancements. The use of technologies such as virtual hearing and remote expert deposition is likely to continue growing. So this is about basically technology and other stuff. So thank you all. Are there any questions?
Question session will be conducted now. So, thank you, Mr. Praveen Priydarshi, for such an enlightening and thought-provoking presentation. Now, move on to the Q&A session. Participants, you can unmute or you can also mention your questions in the chat box. Participants, you can address your queries.
Good morning, sir. So my
Good
question
morning.
is, okay. My question is, what mean by expert testimony? Make it simple at once.
Can you please repeat the question?
So what mean by expert testimony? Make it simple, sir.
So expert testimony can be simplified as any kind of expert in their profession. An expert, you can say, as an expert is a person who is knowledgeable of his working field. Like if there's a suppose there's an engineer, and an engineer is particularly working in automobile field, so that engineer can come to the court if he is summoned by court to help court understand about the functioning of that particular automobile. So that engineer would be considered as an expert witness.
So, here's your second question. Sir, can witness expert interfere in work of forensic expert?
Can witness expert interfere in work of forensic expert?
Yeah.
I don't basically know the answer of the question, but witness expert can't expert witness can't interfere in the work of forensic expert. They can parallelly work on the same evidence, and they can submit their reports in court. They can't interfere.
Okay. Next question is from Lankesh. How many years of experience is required to be an expert? And what are the procedure to being an expert throughout the court to be considered as expert?
So I don't know basically the particular. There is no particular age or particular experience time for being an expert. You must have a degree in that particular subject. You must have training in that particular subject, and you should also have experience and training, and you should also have worked on previously on that particular case in which you are summoned. Like if you are a doctor, so a doctor in a doctor or A doctor or a pathologist, or and court has called you upon a case of any kind of evidence, or suppose you are a doctor or a pathologist. So a pathologist is called in court to explain a report. So a pathologist needs basically 2 to 3 years of experience to explain their reports in court and justify that they are an expert. Whereas a forensic expert, it takes, as a forensic witness, it takes lot of time, like 5 to 6 years, as you are working in firstly labs and then you are working in FSL, SFSL and RFSLs, and you acquire experience with time, and then you are considered as expert witnesses.
Okay, next question is, how do you determine if an expert is qualified in special field? And what are the qualities should we make someone eligible to be an expert witness?
किसी को भी मैम एक्सपर्ट डिफाइन करने के लिए हम लोगों को पहले तो उनकी डिग्री ही होनी चाहिए, और उसके बाद ट्रेनिंग होनी चाहिए, और उनका एक्सपीरियंस प्रीवियसली होना चाहिए उस फील्ड पे, ताकि उनकी क्रेडिबिलिटी पर कभी क्वेश्चन ना उठे कोर्ट में। तो बेसिकली वही है।
Okay,
मैम सिर्फ डिग्री नहीं है, सिर्फ डिग्री नहीं, डिग्री के साथ ट्रेनिंग और एक्सपीरियंस भी होना चाहिए उस फील्ड में।
he's telling.
मैम तो फिर मुझे इस बारे में ज़्यादा पता नहीं है ऐसा क्यों होता है।
Okay, the next question is like, so we have to get registered with the court.
So we have to get registered with the court. No ma'am, I don't know the answer of this question.
Okay, next question is there is any difference between expert witness, and forensic expert witness?
The question's answer is previously explained in the lecture, so I must
Could
repeat.
you explain it again, like simple?
ओके ओके।
Easy for them
तो
to know.
एक एक्सपर्ट कोई भी हो सकता है जिसे अपने फील्ड की नॉलेज हो, और एक विटनेस एक
You
नॉर्मल
can
पर्सन
also show the slide, it will be easier for them.
हो। ओके मैम,
Yeah.
इज द स्लाइड विजिबल?
Yeah.
तो
Yeah.
एक विटनेस, एक ले विटनेस मतलब कोई भी ऐसा इंसान जिसने उस फैक्ट को होते, उस घटना को या उस इवेंट को होते हुए देखा हो अपनी आंखों से, और वो अपने डायरेक्ट एक्सपीरियंस से टेस्टिमनी देता है, तो वो एक विटनेस होता है। एक एक्सपर्ट एक ऐसा इंसान होता है जिसने किसी भी जिसने किसी भी फील्ड में स्पेशलाइज नॉलेज ले रखी हो और उसकी ट्रेनिंग और प्रैक्टिस कर रखी हो। और एक एक्सपर्ट विटनेस एक ऐसा इंसान होता है जो कि एक्सपर्ट होता है और अपनी टेस्टिमनी कोर्ट में प्रेजेंट करता है।
Okay. The next question is, can a mechanic be an expert in a road accident case?
नो,
Why?
सिंपली नो।
Could you explain
भाई
it more detail why?
मैम, अ मैकेनिक कांट बी एन एक्सपर्ट एज, एक मैकेनिक को सिर्फ फंक्शनिंग के बारे में पता है, लेकिन उसने उसकी स्पेशलाइज स्टडी नहीं कर रखी कि एक्सीडेंट कैसे होते हैं, और एक्सीडेंट कैसे होते हैं, और एक्सीडेंट का वो सिर्फ कॉज बता सकता है एक्सीडेंट की, अगर मैकेनिक इन्वॉल्व भी है तो। और उसे बहुत सारी चीज़ें नहीं भी आती हैं, तो उसके पास स्पेशलाइज नॉलेज नहीं है, और उसके पास वो वाला स्किल सेट भी नहीं है कि वो एक्सपर्ट कहलाए।
He has the expert, right? Like 30 to 40 years, maybe he might be experienced there. He knows about all the mechanism and parts. He also studied, right? Mechanic is not an illiterate. So, yeah, he's asking, so he's an expert, right? He's having a knowledge and experience. Why can't he be the expert?
If he has a degree, as I have discussed in the case of Jalal, if you don't have a degree, you wouldn't be considered as an expert. Degree or specific experience.
Okay, is there is any other questions?
So please share the PPT, sir.
Okay, I would share the PPT.
Okay, participants, do you have any other queries? Otherwise, we are going to close the session. Yeah, you can unmute and speak. No problem. Okay, since you have no queries, I'll be closing the session. Um, as I would like to extend my heartful gratitude to Mr. Praveen Priydarshi for sharing his knowledge and inspiring us. I would also thank all the participants for their enthusiastic and active engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for providing me with the platform to share my thoughts and giving me this opportunity to provide a lecture to people. Thank you.